Okay, so I think I'm in pretty good shape. I did notice actually that I forgot to put a file extension on here. Not the end of the world, again, because that's just to aid the interpretation of a computer, but more useful if I have it on there. So I'm going to save this, I'm going to run it in terminal, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so far so good. It does look like it created a new file, so I'm going to go ahead and open that up in Excel and see what I got. So offhand, this looks okay. What I notice a few things, of course. First of all, I lack a header row, right? I also see that I have this ID parameter for only a handful, or it seems like only a handful of my data points. Again, I'm not going to worry too much about that now. I could be more specific. I mean, I don't know why that only exists for some of them. That's obviously something I'd have to do some additional work on. But overall, it seems to have worked pretty well. So the next thing I'm going to do is, first of all, add my header row. And then I'm going to start thinking about, well, what if I wanted to run this script across multiple files, right? So this is the timestamp of the current file that I downloaded, but let's say I had 2 files or 10 files, and I want to run one script and get all of the data into a single file, which I might want to do, again, if I'm trying to analyze an entire hour or day or week or month or year or whatever, right? Because again, this data replaces itself. So I don't get to see what was there 10 minutes ago. If I want to know what was there 10 minutes ago, I have to have downloaded and saved that. So we'll look at how to do that download and saving automatically in a minute. But first we're going to look at how we can run our script on a whole bunch of different files in a single folder without having to go through and specify one by one what the target file name is, the way that we did here, where we said, oh, it specifically has this file name. So first things first, I want to actually write myself a header row. So I'm going to go up here and say output writer, right row, and this is just going to be these parameters, right? So I'm going to do this a little bit manually, right? Station ID, bikes available. Okay, not very interesting here, but this will just make sure that I can actually interpret this data when I'm done. Actually, a number of different ways I could go about doing this, but this is the way I'm going to do it. There's not so many parameters that it's the end of the world. So you notice that this parameter is called isInstalled and it has a 0 or a 1. That's not unusual to find that rather than true or false, you see a 0 or a 1. 0 indicates false, 1 indicates true. Oops, last reported. Almost finished here. Okay, I'm pretty sure that that's the last available column based on what I saw in my data. And again, I can just do a very quick check. I'm going to rerun my script, make sure that I get headers. Now, I do want to make sure that I close my target data file fully before I then try to run it again, because otherwise what I'm going to do is it's going to actually preserve the open copy and it won't look like anything happened. So that's a pretty common thing that happens. You forget to save your file, you forget to close the target file, but now I have a nice header row in there, right? Does it have, oops, oh no, I missed the last one. Okay, one more in there. So, did I miss keys? Let's see. Let's check my data again. Somewhere between num bikes disabled and num docs available. I missed one. Here we go. Num e-bikes available. Oof, I'm having problems with this. All right, I'm not going to worry about this right now. I will figure it out, I promise. However, let's move on. Okay, so I've got something approximating a header row. I need to figure that out. Actually, I'm just going to pause for a second and I'll be right back. Okay, so what have I always said? It's always going to be the really obvious thing. So remember where the first thing that I added to my row was the start time, but then I didn't actually add a header for it? I'm going to go, I need to put this at the front. I was off by one the whole time. It's actually a name for that. It's called an off by one error. It is very, very common. So anyhow, now I should have a matching header row. All of that finished. Now I want to concern myself with how do I put myself in a situation where I do not have to give the specific file name, right? So again, I want to do this because I know that my data updates regularly. So if I go back to my web page here and I reload, totally different timestamp, different data in there somewhere. To illustrate this, I'm just going to actually create another, I'm just going to save another JSON file, right? I'm going to paste this in and I'm going to save this and I'm going to call this city bike data 1.json, okay? So the point is that this is exactly the same in structure as our original one. All that's different is the timestamp and obviously some of the values contained in the various stations. So I now have two files that I want to work on. So I don't want to have to write two separate scripts saying, oh, first do it on city bike data and then do it on city bike data 1. There is happily a library, beautifully called glob, that is going to let us say, look, I want you to execute the following script on every file in the target folder that has a particular file extension, right? So basically what I can do is say, here's the name of the folder all my stuff is in, anything that ends in .json, I want you to then run in this script. And then what it's going to do is make a list of the matching file names. And then I'm just going to set up another for loop and say, for every file name, right, for every file that you find that matches these conditions, run this script and then go to the next one and then run this script and then go to the next one. So you can see that actually all of our programming logic is made up of two things, loops and conditionals. And that, my friends, is it. So glob is the name of our library. So my first step is actually going to be to rearrange things a little bit, because even though I only have a single, because even though I'm going to read from multiple data files, I only want to write to one output file, right? So I actually want to move my output file, the creation of my output file up top here, right? To keep that all together, I'm going to create one output file, one writer, one header row, right? And then what I need to do is I need to say, okay, I'm going to put all of my target data files in one folder, and then I'm going to direct my script to work on every single file in that folder. So the next step is I'm going to put all of my target data files into a single folder. So I'm going to create a new folder here. I could do this from terminal also, but I'm going to do it from here, and I'm going to call this JSON data. Okay, I would like to move you into here. Okay, and then I'm just going to move both of my data files into there as well. Okay, so you can see I have my JSON parser Python file, and then I have, and this is really just for organizational purposes, right? I could put them all in the same folder, except it's nicer to have my data separated from my scripting files, for example. You'll see that in a lot of well-structured programs. You want to have your data kept separate so that it doesn't get mixed up with other things that you need. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, oh my gosh, can you please not do that? I don't know what's going on. That's weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say folder name. I'll say data folder. And what's the name of that folder? It's JSON data. Okay. And now what I need to do is say, okay, so I know the name of the folder. How am I going to find the files that I am looking for? Well, the question is, what do I know about them? So what I know, and you're going to enjoy this, this is the name of the function in library glob, get iglob. I know that they're going to be in my data folder, so I'm going to start with data folder. And now I can actually append by using the plus sign. I'm going to use the / to say go into that folder. And then what do I know about them? Well, I know that it is going to be, I don't care what the name is, other than that it ends in .json, right? So this is actually using a form of regular expression to say inside that JSON data folder, right? JSON data / any file name as long as it ends in JSON. And remember, this is a for loop, so I need my colon. Now, what do I need to change in here? A couple of things. First, I need to make sure that all of my code, right, other than the closing texts, is inside this new for loop, right? And what does that mean? It means it's indented one. So if I select all my lines of code and I just hit tab, it's going to move everything over one. So we can see all of the interior indents have remained the same, right? But it's just everything is now inside this for loop. And of course, the file that I'm pointing at is no longer specifically citybikeData.json. It's whatever file name is. So what that should do is it should match one or the other of these first, citybikeData and then citybikeData1 or the opposite. So we'll want to think about naming conventions at some point when we do this, if we want things to appear in chronological order. But for now, let's just see if we actually get what we think we get. Maybe we'll get some errors. Let's find out. Okay, so I haven't actually changed the name of my script. Oh, here we go. No such file directory. Ah, okay. Oh, unsafe changes, folks. Get you every time. Right? Because it said source file open citybikeData.json, and I was like, wait, I just changed that to file name, but I hadn't actually saved it. There was a blue dot up there. Let's try this again. Okay, so something happened, right? No errors. That's usually a nice sign. So let's see what my converted data looks like now. Now what I can see is that I have one set that is one set of timestamps, and here's our second set of timestamps. So it worked. It has now gone through both files without my having to specify the file names. All I had to do was put a correctly formatted file that ended in .json into this folder. So when we come back, the last thing we're going to do is look at how we can create a script that is going to automatically download our data files for us at a timed interval and put them into that folder so that we can set up a script that runs in the background while we're doing other things and downloads all the data that we need. Then we can run our single script at the end and get all of our data compiled into one place. So hang on for a moment. We'll come back and do that in just a second.